Hello, this is Aitana, and you are listening to Season 1 of the Swimming the Strait podcast, where we talk with swimmers of all sorts from the New Zealand swimming arena, from swimming every day through the winter to crossing the Cook Strait. We will hear stories of passion, perseverance, and dedication. Welcome to episode 3 of Season 1 of Swimming the Strait. Today's guest is a legend in the open water swimming space. He has the first and fastest double Cook Strait and Taupo crossings and fastest double and triple crossing of the English Channel. I have the pleasure to talk today to Phil Rush. Hello Phil, how are you? Thank you for joining us in Swimming the Strait podcast.
No, that's great. I'm very pleased to be here.
I am very excited about this interview today. You have been inspiration for me for a long time. And please tell us, have you ever been a swimmer? Why did you start swimming? Tell us a little bit about your story.
I was originally born in Dunedin. I was put to swimming because I was overweight. I was one of these young people that had looked as if I had a gland problem, carried a lot of weight, and my parents put me to swimming. And it started off from learning to swimming in Dunedin with Duncan Lang, who was a well-known swimming coach. And then we started from there. And I started training, losing weight, and then started competitive swimming and trainings probably 11 days a week. 11 sessions a week, and it grew from there. I was never fast enough to compete at the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games. I could go to the trials in the pool, and being from Dunedin, I was used to the cold, and things really grew from there. So it started with me winning the national 3-kilometre event, which was a national title, and it finished swimming English Channel 3 ways at 110 kilometres.
Amazing. That is amazing. Just starting with 3K and finishing with 110. I saw that the first event that you did was when you were 16 years old. 16 years old.
Yeah, I think I was 15, 16 when I first swam Cook Strait, which was in 1979, 80, I think it was. And that was the first big event that I did and was successful. We, at the time, we had the world amateur swimming champion out here. And we had a race across Cook Strait, and I was lucky enough to win that, and that was really where it all started, and started my international swimming career. But prior to that, I was, we would be training twice a day, 7 days a week, or 6 days a week, and once on a Sunday, and so I was really fit, and I was always first in the water into training and last out, and it helped at the end of the day.
Paid off.
It did.
Was that sessions always in the pool, or were you also swimming in the ocean, or always in the ocean?
No, I'm a firm believer that you train in the pool for your speed. Open water swimming is all about speed and holding pace, as you will hear us talk about later on. And I think that if you can hold pace, you can do that in the pool. Then outside, you just need to have confidence in the open water. I never did a lot of open water training as such. All of it was in the pool. All of it was using a clock on the end of the pool and doing long distances at speed.
Yeah, I think you've told me that a few times, that you have to swim in the pool if you want to be fast in the ocean. So this is great in my brain.
I think it's a combination of both. You get confidence in both areas. You need to get your fitness up and your speed up, which you can do in the pool. You get your confidence of swimming in the sea, swimming in rough water, swimming in the cold is done in the sea.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to the 16-year-old swimmer that went and crossed Cook Strait for the first time, I am very interested in knowing, how do you decide when you are 16 that you're going to cross. Did you say that it was a race?
Yeah, I just started out doing marathon swimming as such. It had started at something like 3Ks and grown in the open water. I was good in the cold because I was from Dunedin. I had good speed, so I was racing older people, people 25 to 30 years old that have been involved in the sport, and all of a sudden I was the new light on the scene, so to say. So a gentleman, Barry Devonport, who was the first person to swim Cook Strait, got on board and he said, right, we'll have a race with the world champion across Cook Strait. And we went down to Island Bay. They got us on these 2 fishing boats. The pair of us went out there, and it was meant to be not so much a race, but just completing the event about open water swimming. And of course, he was wanting to win going across, and I was wanting to win to go across, even though it wasn't a race. Lucky enough, I don't get seasick, and Muhammad, because it was around about an hour's trip down to the start, was chronically seasick on the way down. And as soon as we hit the water and the gun went, I was gone. And I was lucky enough to win that by about 25 minutes, the race across. And that was the first time across Cook Strait. It was, I think it was about 7.5 hours. I'd have to look back now. But, and Muhammad went about 8 hours 20, so I absolutely walloped him on the way across. So I was and that was the first time that I'd been involved in anything so large and a large body of water. But it is just another piece of water. If you build up in your mind about these pieces of water, it's water. If we painted a line on the bottom, it's just an enlarged swimming pool.
Yeah, well, let me disagree on that. The Cook Strait is such an amazing piece of water. So I have a question about that. What does make Cook Strait such a special place and such hard place to swim?
I think anybody that lives in Wellington really appreciates Cook Strait and the weather that we have. We've got to get so many things right. We've got to get the tide right. We've got to get the wind right. And we've got to get the swimmer right. So the swimmer needs to be able to swim in between 14 to 16 degrees. Needs to be able to swim for a minimum of 7 hours, holding good pace. And this is where we start worrying about what speed you swim. If we can swim over 3 kilometres an hour, we've got a really good chance of getting across Cook Strait. If we swim below 3 kilometres an hour, let's say 2.5 kilometres an hour, consistently, we have less than a 5% chance of succeeding going across Cook Strait. So hence the speed becomes very, very important. We want to up that percentage rate of being successful, so we do that by going faster.
Yeah, so speed would be one of the main.
Yes, and we have this Ocean 7 now that everybody wants to complete, and Cook Strait is the swim that everybody has trouble completing. One, because it's so far away from the northern hemisphere. Two, the weather in Wellington is the best weather we could have anywhere in the world, and we can't push on a set of tides, may last 5 days. We're lucky to get one swimmer away. When we need less than 10 knots of wind, we need the water temperature to be right, and we need the tide to be right.
Yeah, so many pieces of the puzzle, right, that have to all synchronize to make the event successful.
Yeah, and we don't get consistency in weather. We could start out with a beautiful day, and halfway through the day we can end up getting 10, 15, 20 knots. It's never calm all day. We don't get those days here in Wellington. That's what makes Wellington special. Exactly,
and that's also what makes Cook Strait so special, because you can find all sort of conditions out there. And
totally, and it is still just recently, just 2 weeks ago, we were out there and we had a swimmer that got within 800 metres ashore. It was pitch black out there in May, and all of a sudden the tide turns, and before we know it, we're heading literally right back out to the middle of Cook Strait. There was no way we could get the swimmer into the finish. The tide is just too aggressive and severe to be able to finish. And he was a good swimmer.
What happened? Did he finish?
We didn't finish.
Oh,
We
no.
had to after 11 and a half hours, we had to pull him from the water.
That's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking for everybody. It's you work so hard to get them very close to the finish, and I had to stop him and say, we're going backwards. We're not going to get there. We're going to have to try this another day. And he said, let's just keep going. We were going backwards. We were literally going back down the line that we'd gone to get within 800 metres ashore.
Yeah, I think for me being an oceanographer, one of the things that I enjoy and fascinates me about swimming is that is the swimmer against the elements, the ocean, and you have to respect the ocean and you put all the work and everything that is on your side, but it's at the end it's out of control a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's so many things change. I mean, it may well have been windy 4 days beforehand, which affects the way the tide move. The tide is worked out through the moon and everything like that. But I'm reading it out of a book, and hopefully that book's right. That's going to tell us what time we start, when we start, and then we've got to get the weather that's right. I've got to get a swimmer that's right, and hopefully we will get across.
Yeah.
So it's about eliminating risk. So the faster you're able to swim, we're eliminating risk of being out there. So we do it on one tide pattern, so we don't need two tide patterns. And the weather, once again, we're eliminating risk. If you can go faster, we spend less time out there, which is good because we've got more opportunity to get across. Mm. It's all about the risk of the day.
Yeah. And I guess to eliminate that risk, one of the main things, if speed is one of the main variables, one of the main things that you can do to control that is training.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer of you train hard, you get the rewards. So and whether that's in the pool or in the sea, it's all about being as fit and healthy as possible to achieve the goal. Some people will never achieve it. And that's sad. But as we discussed earlier, the English Channel is something completely different. You can hop in, you can wallow around there for days, literally, and you will land in Europe, somewhere. Who knows where? We can't pinpoint where. But the tide will just go up and down. It's not that fierce. It is very consistent to the way it goes, and as long as you can keep swimming, as long as you can stay warm enough and keep well fed, you will wash up on the other side. We can't do that in Cook Strait. You're either on your way to Christchurch or you're on your way to Nelson or Australia. As I say, the closest I think I've had somebody is around about 70 metres from the finish, and I could hear the waves breaking on the rock. I could see where we were going to finish, and the gentleman just passed out on me. He didn't have another, and that was after 18 and a half hours. And we just went whistling past that rock, heading towards Australia.
Oh my God.
And it was all over and done with. And, it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking to see those sorts of things happen.
What about the ones that make it? That would be amazing.
Oh, it is. And, it's... Once again, the ones that deserve to get there, the ones that have done the work, can hold the speed and get across on a beautiful day. And some of them aren't such good days, and we still manage to get them across, but they are swimming at a pace that enables us to be able to do something with them moving with the tide.
It's like an orchestra. You have to align all the elements to make it happen.
It is very, very much so. And I'm very, very lucky to be able to be a part of these people's swims and get them across and do something that's pretty special. There's still only 100 and I'm not sure if we're up to 150 yet completed swims, and that is pretty special for something that's been going since about 1962. I think I've been involved in 560 odd attempts to get 150 successful swims. So it is, and that says to me that it's a difficult piece of water.
It is indeed a difficult piece of water. And I have a question about how things have changed since you started swimming open water, or if they have changed since you were swimming open water and doing these events to now. Because all these elements that we're talking about, the ocean and the tides, those remain kind of the same, right? But how about the swimmer? How about the way we swim, the way we feel, the way we train?
Yeah, I'd like to think that we train wiser, so we're not flogging ourselves to death all the time. And but then that builds endurance, so that means you can stay out there longer. You're better prepared. Food. If we look at the food these days, you can walk into a sports shop and there is shelves of food. If you don't like this one, you can have that one. You don't like that one, you can have this one. GPS. When I was swimming, we didn't have GPS. It was all done by maps and compasses and things like that. But we still use, in the bottom of the IRBs when we're going across, we have a very large compass that we change and use compasses all the time still to give us the direction. So a lot of the fundamental, we've got faster goggles, we've got faster swimsuits, or they look better. I'm not convinced whether they're faster, but nutrition has come a long way. I mean, we used to use Sustagen and Sustolite, which is now they use Sustagen to keep old people alive. It's like a Complan, and it's just carbohydrates in a bottle, But I think that side of things have really improved. The swimming side of it, training's changed. You don't need to do as much. You can train wiser with, and I'd like to think that we've been a part of changing the training and being so you don't have to do as much. As we mature, our body can't cope with as much, so we have to train wisely. But really, if you really get stuck in and you can control your mind, you can do anything you want, and those things haven't changed since I was swimming back in '87 was when we had our best year. So if you can. But you have to do the work. With any endurance sport, you have to do the work.
And what is that work? Because I am very interested in the mind part of it, of how do you endure.
Well, your mind is a great piece of machinery, isn't it? It can be the most successful thing, or it can ruin anything that you put doubt into. And I'd like to think that the first thing we need to take it back a little bit is, if you get yourself in the best possible shape physically, then mentally the rest will come. If you can control what goes into your mind, you can do absolutely anything, and can control that mind. The longer these swims go on, this year I've had been lucky enough to have a couple of doubles of Lake Taupo. Well, they were both around the 30-hour mark, and those young ladies were incredibly strong. I had a young lady and Caitlin, who was under 20, and I had somebody older, and Rebecca, and their minds were completely different. So Caitlin is a young mind that still hasn't matured yet, where Rebecca was an older mind that was more mature and could control what she was thinking, where Caitlin was the slightest little bit would distract her. She's still learning to use that mind and learning to control the mind, where Rebecca was very... her feeds were every 30 seconds. Her feeds would be 30 seconds. and it was 30 seconds only. We didn't need to stimulate her mind. She was in a zone that was controlling everything that went on. Caitlin would be easily distracted and pain might come into her mind. And as a 17 or 18-year-old, it's very hard to control pain, where it's just your mind saying, I don't want to be here. I want to get out. I want to be doing something else with my friends. Or with Rebecca, she would say, right, I've got a task in hand. This is my task. I'm going to set my mind to it, and bang, bang, bang.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, and you can do it. Anybody can do it with whatever you're doing. If you can control that mind, you can swim faster. It's about your technique. It cuts out the pain. Pain is something that after a while starts coming. If you can control that and shut that out and think of something that will distract you, and the hardest thing is thinking of nothing. Shutting your mind down so that you're still swimming. And I like to think that was my strong point, that I could actually just shut out. I used to love swimming at night, no matter where. If you can't see anything, there's no point in looking around. You just get on, swim at good pace, and we were able to swim at 4.5 k's an hour, hour in, hour out, night and day. And when morning came, we'd pick it up to about 5 k's an hour, so it's almost like we were resting at night, because there's nothing to look at. There's nothing in the water. Under the water, you can't see anything. There's the boat beside us, which is giving us direction, and you shut everything else off. So you are in a form of self-hypnosis. And if you're not in that form of mindset, you start going through agony. Oh, this is hurting, that's hurting. It's not. You don't think of time. You cannot think of time on these long swims, because all of a sudden you think, well, that must be half an hour and it's been 2 or 3 minutes. Your mind is too active. You have to slow it down, and you have to go into a place that you don't think. You don't want to be thinking about, oh, how far have I gone? I must have gone this. I mean, I used to know there was 1,632 strokes every half hour.
Wow.
And after that half hour, I'd have a feed and we'd just keep on going. And at night on the swims, nobody would talk. So we were all in just a really quiet space, so that you sort of just drop yourself down, the anxiety goes away, so that you're not actually, and then time just drifts away and you're not thinking of it, and time and pain just go.
Yeah, they disappear. It's kind of getting into that routine, into that meditation state, that you just everything disappears. It just keeps swimming.
And it is. It's self-hypnosis, meditation. It's all the same. And, I used to have a trick where I could lie down, and within 2 or 3 minutes I could be out cold and not hear or feel anything. And it used to be great before you go training. It was like sleep. You just go, you put your mind to sleep, body to sleep, 10 minutes, and you'll be ready to go. Up, ready to go again. So it's a very strong piece of machinery, is our mind.
Yeah, it is. And I agree with you that it can't ruin your swim as well, because in my case, I'm a little bit scared. So when I swim and I'm a little bit scared, I know that is taking energy from the swim. If my brain is going a little bit crazy, then I'm using that energy for the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I think that in those situations you have to back what you've done. So you build up. You might start doing a smaller swim of a couple of Ks in calm conditions, and from there you might then go and do a couple of Ks in rough conditions, and then so on, and keep building up from there. If you believe that you can do something, that water's fine, no matter what that water's going to be like, I'm going to be fine, then all of a sudden you've got a different self-confidence about what you can do. And if you put people around you that you know you can trust when you're swimming, so that all you have to do is worry about swimming, then that all of a sudden makes you feel more confident that, yes, I'm fine. That person's going to make sure that I stay alive and I'm looking after them. And you've got the best skipper in the world, that you know that they're going to do their job. And that if everybody does their job, all of a sudden your confidence is thinking, well, I've got the best of this, I've got the best coach, I'm a good swimmer, let's go.
Yeah, we were talking the other day with a lady that has been doing long swims as well, and we were discussing that swimming is a one-person sport because you are one swimmer, but it is not a one-person sport because you need the people around you in these long events, in these long swims. You have to have a team that you trust and that is going to look after you for what you were saying, that you just focus on swimming and that's your only thing that you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody does their job, it's like going to work. You know, okay, we've got to get the weather right. Somebody's got to make that decision. Most of the time, it's better the swimmer does it. I mean, I'm about to embark into a program with Caitlin O'Reilly, and Caitlin knows that she can trust me for absolutely anything. All she has to worry about is swimming. I will make sure that she stays alive while she's swimming, and that we will supply her with the best food possible. I am reliant on the skipper, making sure that he is doing his job well. I will make sure he's doing his job well. But once again, it's about that protection, so that then Caitlin, all she has to do is get in and swim at 4 kilometres an hour for as long as I need her to do it until we reach land. And that all of a sudden relieves the pressure. It means that she can just focus on the swimming, and she doesn't need to worry about, you know, what food she's got or all those sorts of things. That's taken care of. And it just means that you can do your job.
That is that's very satisfying to hear, because then it's like, okay, you have to choose the right people.
And there's a lot of people learning. The sport is, open water swimming is the marathon running of the 80s. Everybody was doing it. Now all those people are getting new hips and bits and pieces because they're broken. But the swimming is different because it's they can do it in wetsuits, you can do it whatever. But people are embracing it. Then cold water swimming, there's nothing worse than swimming in the cold, is there? I mean, you come in, I see you come in on poolside, absolutely freezing some days. But people are enjoying that. It's pushing themselves against the conditions.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, because I've seen in the last years that there has been an explosion of open water swimmers. Why do you think it's that?
It's something to... I'm not sure. It's become popular. Everybody wants to be doing it. Swimming has become more popular. And now it's all year round. You know, they're in the sea all year round. And, you know, we see Dougal coming in there some days that he can't even talk.
But, I know.
The same as yourself. You're exactly the same. But it's pushing yourself against the conditions. Swimming is good for you. It takes the weight off the spine, shoulders. Yes, you're obviously having to put in effort in and things like that. But it's a very healthy... You don't do a lot of damage swimming well.
But when you do long distances, like when we are more than 3K, that starts taking a toll on your body.
Body or mind?
Both?
I think if you do the work, say, okay, you start doing some long distances, but you know that 3 to 10 Ks, I think if you do a good volume of work, you do your preparation well, once again, you control what's going into your mind because you know you've done the training, you've got your right goggles, you've got your food, you've got somebody feeding you that you can trust that you're going to get the right food. That just means that your body is really just the machine that needs tuning up every so often, like your car. Your car keeps going and going and going. If you put bad fuel into it, it doesn't go that well.
Yeah.
And if you don't use it often and train your car to what you're doing, or keep it going, it won't run that well. It's the same as our bodies. It's a great piece of machinery. If you train it and look after it, it will do you for many, many years. I wish my body was in such good shape now, but I've got to have 2 shoulder reconstructions. But the volume of swimming that we did, and in those early days, the quick fix, the cortisones and things like that have played its toll. And swimming in cold water for long periods of time. I think the longest I ever did was 6 hours and 6 degrees. So that on your joints and things like that isn't good, and old age isn't going to be particularly nice, I don't think, to me. But they're the sorts of things, if you're in good shape, you're feeding properly, you're training well, then you can do anything.
Okay, I have another question about the cold. 6 hours and 6 degrees is mind-blowing.
I won. Everybody else was in hospital.
Well, yes, I won, exactly. Well, 6 hours, I cannot even comprehend 6 hours and 6 degrees. I think the coldest I've swum has been 9.5 and for 10 minutes, and I was already done. So how do you cope with cold, and do you think you can train it?
There's many things you need to focus on. One, if you're a runner, say, for example, if you're a runner, there's no body fat, there's no way you're going to survive. 2, where have you been brought up? You've been brought up in Spain, where the weather's very nice. I was brought up in Dunedin, where the weather was very cold. I used to be on the rubbish carts picking up rubbish. Through summer and winter, I'd be in shorts and a singlet when it was snowing. I was never really, really slim. Some of the statistics that we've done for open water swimming are that warm food, when you're swimming, warm food, once your stroke count or rate drops down, it's very hard to pick them up. So once you're not swimming at a good pace that is generating heat in your body, you will just get colder and colder and become hypothermic. And the last thing, which is probably the most important thing, if your body fat content is less than 15%, really taking up bowls or a nice summer sport is for you. There are exceptions to the rule. Dunedin is very much colder. In winter, the water temperature was below 10. In summer, it was about 12 or 13 when I was growing up. So I was always in cold water. So your body's used to being in cold water. And you can control it. I had a relatively high stroke rate. I was fit, so I could hold that stroke rate, which kept me warm. Some people can cope with it, some people can't, and it's all about body makeup. The females seem to be able to cope with it better than males.
Okay.
Because their build-up there is an extra layer of fat in there somewhere that manages to keep them warmer, and they don't need to swim as fast to keep warm. Where males, they have to swim faster to try and generate the heat, and that's why when we're swimming, whether it's in Cook Strait or anywhere that's cold, warm food, so all the feeds are warm, so that it just keeps the edge off that's inside, and sun on your back, all those sorts of things makes you feel better, and you can keep your stroke rate going. And warm food is very, very important.
Do you swim at all anymore?
I'm starting again.
Oh, wow, okay.
But I say that every year.
Oh.
I'd love to be able to just hop in and just swim. When I gave up, I had bad arthritis in my shoulders, and I was just over it. I was over it because we were training 100 kilometres a week, week in, week out, and then we'd be travelling and racing every Sunday, anything from 25 k's through to, I think the longest race we used to have was around about 80 k's across a lake in Canada, and that was cold. And that was year in, year out for 10 years, and then I'd go to the English Channel to try and swim it 3 ways. That took 4 years to achieve that goal. And once again, it's all about the weather. So you don't necessarily, you set your mind to something, and these open water swims, the weather or the tide or whatever may not allow you to do it. So they're never just a short-term goal. They need to be a longer-term goal. And as I say, it took 4 years for us to, and when we got the day right, we were very, very lucky. But it took 4 years and a lot of training and a lot of money and a lot of hard work.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see you in the ocean at some point.
It'll be a swimming pool.
Cool. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
No. I just think it's great that we're seeing so many people and coming into open water swimming. And I'm very fortunate that I help people achieve their goals.
Yeah, it is a great job and very rewarding and very emotional.
Yeah, at different times people just dish up different things, and at the end of the day when we get them across, I always say it's a team effort, but the swimmer's the one that's done it. But if we don't supply the knowledge and keeping them on task, so to say, it makes it a lot more difficult for them.
Definitely, you need to know that the person who's guiding you knows what he's doing, and also I think knowing your experience and that you've done it a few times and that you have all that case like supporting you and all those events, it's just kind of it makes the swimmer feel better for sure.
Oh, I know, it's great, it's good.
It is good. Well, thank you very much, and hopefully I will see you in the pool.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening to the Swim in the Strait podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast, connect on social media @Swim in the Strait, and leave us a rating on your favorite podcast platform.